welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Map podcast with me, Rachel. It is on the run up to Christmas now. We are, as I'm recording this, on the 12th of December, so less than 2 weeks now to Christmas. And I really just wanted to record a short episode for you today, sharing my thoughts on this crazy time of year and how we can make it, maybe just a little bit less crazy. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about today. I think the first thing I really want to say is kind of the need to accept that this is a crazy time. With the best will in the world, we are going about all our normal daily activities, and then we are adding on top of that various different Christmas festive activities. If you've got kids, there's stuff going on at school. There is presents to buy, presents to wrap, Christmas parties to go to, all sorts of different things, whilst also preparing for maybe having a bit of time off from your job, from your business, whatever it is that you do. If you want to take a little bit of time off over the Christmas, you're probably on the run up to that, sort of trying to get things in a position that you can take that time off. So that is the first thing to really think about, is to just kind of accept that it is a bit crazy. It is a little bit manic, but it is very short-lived. And also just kind of like embracing it. And that's the first thing. And then secondly, I want to encourage everybody to really remember the power of taking a pause. Now, I've done an episode on this before, the power of the pause, which I will link in the show notes. But really just reminding ourselves that before we make any decisions, before we say yes to things, before we say no to things, before any of that, we should take a pause. Why do we want to take a pause? We want to take a pause because we want to be sure that our decision is right for us and it's kind of aligned with where we want to be, what we want to do, and also just to ensure that we're not taking on too much that we're then struggling to cope with down the line. So anything that kind of comes into your world during this crazy period, if people say, oh, do you want to, meet up for Christmas drinks? Or do you want to come to this carol singing event? Trying to think of some other random Christmas activities, or maybe it's work-wise, or could you just maybe take on this extra project? If you run your own business, or maybe you want to run a workshop on the run up to Christmas, all these sorts of things that might sort of come out. Rather than giving a quick answer, I just really encourage you to just take that pause and really think about it, because what's really important to remember, that when we say yes to something, effectively we are saying no to something else, because there are only so many hours in the day and we are already probably at a fairly full capacity. So anything that we kind of agree to take on is going to mean that something else is going to have to give a little. And we have to decide if that is worth it and if that's right for us and that's what we want to do. And by remembering like the things that are really, really important to us, we have to sort of almost factor those into any decisions that we make. So I really just encourage you to just take that pause to really think about whether this is the right decision for you in this moment. Is it something that you can take on? Is it something that you want to take on? And I think also remembering that at the end of the day, look, Christmas is just one day. There's all this sort of stuff around it. It doesn't have to be as big as sometimes we think it needs to be. And so by taking that pause and asking yourself, is this really that necessary? All the little things that we do in the run up to Christmas, just ask yourself, is it really important? Does this bring me joy? Is this going to make a massive impact, a massive difference to someone or something around this time? And if it isn't, maybe it's something that you can let go of. Maybe it's not something you need to do or take on. For example, I always like to make my own wreath for my door at Christmas. Very, very simply, I'm not that artistic, sadly, but I will just cut some extra branches off my Christmas tree when I get it, and then I just put them in like a wreath and add some bits of berries and cones and stuff like that and some lights. But now that takes a little bit of my time. Now, obviously that's cutting into some time where I could be doing something else. So I have to ask myself, like, is it that important? No, not really. Like, is anybody going to care if I've got a handmade wreath on my door? No. So I could 100% just go, no, do you know what? I don't need to do that. However, I then ask myself, but does it bring me joy? And actually, yes, it does. Because I actually really enjoy doing it. And it's just like a little bit sort of creative. And and I really like that. I look forward to doing it, and it doesn't take up that much of my time, so I choose to do it. So you need to ask yourself, A, have you got the capacity to do these things? And B, is it going to bring you joy? And if it is, then maybe you can find the time because it's important to you. And I think the other thing to remember at this time of year is really about just having those like clear boundaries, like having it in your mind as to what are your like non-negotiables? What are you sort of saying, do you know what, I still must do this for my own peace of mind, for my own sanity? You know, maybe it's a daily practice. Maybe it's something, you know, I need to get out and get fresh air every day. I need to go for a little walk around the block. I need to make sure I'm finding time to exercise twice a week, or whatever it is for you. Decide what are your boundaries and what are your non-negotiables. And then when you're looking at all this extra stuff that's been coming at you, ask yourself, like, is that going to cross into one of those non-negotiables? And if it is, then maybe that's not something you want to take on right now. And then the final thing I think to remember is to say, if it doesn't need to be now, then don't let it be now. You know, if there's something that you can push to January, February, whatever, if there's something you can push forward, then maybe you want to consider pushing it forward, because, you know, we've only got this small amount of time. It is busy already. So if stuff comes in, and yes, you want to do it and you can do it, but actually it doesn't really need to get done by the end of this year, it could be done at a later stage, then absolutely, like, push that to the new year. Don't add another thing into your already crazy to-do lists. If it's something that can be moved, move it. So those are my kind of very quick tips, ideas, thoughts on how we can just ensure that, yes, this busy period, yes, this crazy period isn't as crazy as it needs to be. Maybe we can just regain a little bit of control and not take on too much by making sure we remember to take that pause before we agree to anything. So I hope that helps. I hope that resonates. As always, come and find me. I'm at Rachel Bloomfield Coaching on all the socials, and I love to hear from you. And I will be taking a break from this podcast now over Christmas. So I look forward to catching up with you in the new year.